jurisdictions. These are all separate jurisdictions. These do not combine in any which way, shape, or form, and they're different jurisdictions for a reason. So we have the monarchy, we have lands, tenements, hereditaments, corporeal and incorporeal. Lands comprehends all things of a permanent, substantial nature, being a word of a very extensive signification. As will presently appear more at large, the object of dominion or property are things, as contradistinguished from persons, and things are by law of England distributes them into two kinds: things real, personal, and I gotta fix that other part. So this is from Blackstone's commentaries. Everything that's in this slide is from Blackstone's commentaries. So basically, what he's getting at here is land is everything, right? It takes up of everything that you can imagine. It's the object of the dominions of property of things, right? But it's contradiction from persons, because English law is not a law over people. It's a land trust law for the things attached to the lands that are in trust. Those things that are attached to the lands in trust, right? So it's very important that we realize right off the hop that land comprehends all things, and this is what takes us into the law of nature, right? And also Blackstone's absolute rights of man goes into the significance of land and the true essence to what land is. The next page, we're going to get into tenements. Tenement is a word of still greater extent, and though it is, in its vulgar acception, it only applied to houses or other buildings, yet in its original, proper, and legal sense, it signifies everything that may be holden, provided it be for a permanent nature, whether it be of a substantial and sensible, or of an unsubstantial kind, ideal kind. So we're realizing that now tenements is the houses, the cars, your agreements, your education, you, your wife, and your children. Because it's not only applied to the houses and buildings, but it is in every proper legal sense, and it signifies everything that may be holden, provided it's in a permanent nature, right? Now, hereditament, but an hereditament, says Sir Edward Coke, is by much the largest and most comprehensive expression, for it includes not only lands and tenements, but whatever may be inherited, be it corporeal or incorporeal, real, personal, or mixed. So we can see that now land hereditaments and the lands and tenements and everything that's being attached, now it's everything, right? So everything, hereditaments includes the tenements, right? And everything else that is inside those other jurisdictions, right? So it's everything within the land jurisdiction, everything within the tenement jurisdiction, everything that is real, personal, and mixed, right? So it's taking everything into consideration. This is where it gets interesting. A corporeal hereditament consists wholly of a substantial permanent objects, all which may be comprehended consist under the general domination of land only. So we can see now that corporeal only deals with a very tiny area of law, or of things in the law, and it's only the lands, in the real jurisdiction. The incorporeal hereditament is a right issuing out of those things corporate, right? Because the corporeal hereditament is the actual common law land tenure, right? The corporeal land tenure has a use for a fee to the donor. That's the A and B. So it's a private in agreement. So they had to make another jurisdiction for those that have an equitable use of those things granted from the monarchy, from the original grant. So that's where incorporeal hereditaments come into play. But you'll notice that it's only a right issuing out of a thing corporate, whether real or personal, or concerning or annexed to, or exercisable within the same jurisdiction, right? It is not the thing corporate itself, which may consist in lands, houses, jewels, or the like, but something collateral to, as a rent, titles by purchase, issuing out of those lands or houses or office relating to those jewels. So titles by purchase and descent. So as you can see that they've combined this use for a fee and stuck only those people that don't have true rights, because this is, remember, it's only the right issuing out of the thing corporate. So it only has what the corporate can grant. Because if the corporeal jurisdiction doesn't have that original grant, they don't have that to pass on, right? Because we never transferred true ownership in the corporeal hereditament to the monarchy, so there isn't one anywhere below it, right? This is the assumed. So we can see that now the incorporeal hereditament, right? Because this is where those pictures from earlier are going to really start making sense on why they were there, right? So now it's everything included. So it's the agreements, right? It's not only your natural person, but it's also your corporate person, right? Any type of agreements or anything that you can do, and plus everything that's only the real and personal that are being held by the fee simple, right? Because everybody in this is fee simple. So it's you in the green tie making the agreement to become fee simple, right? Accepting a title by purchase, right? And giving a grant back to the right, giving everything back to C for a real and personal jurisdiction in property, right? With only property rights, right? The next slide is the real jurisdiction. Things real are such as are permanent, fixed, and immovable, which cannot be carried out of their place as lands and tenements. Okay, but hold on a second. Now they added a whole new scheme to this, because real is saying that it has the same jurisdiction as corporeal, but it can't be corporeal, because everything within the real jurisdiction is actually incorporeal. See what I'm getting at? So the lands, the houses, and the corporeal jurisdiction created the real jurisdiction inside the incorporeal jurisdiction. So we already know that by looking at what the incorporeal hereditament is that this is a right annexed to it. So they've now made the assumption that for this incorporeal jurisdiction that it's going to act in equity as a corporeal jurisdiction, but it's not, right? It's the assumption, right? Because now the assumption is the trust assumption that follows every level, because at this point you would have already been D, and because you're D, you have to give these things back in trust to C again. See what I'm getting at? So it's these different jurisdictions that they're telling you about, and who who falls into what and what capacity they have to the things, right? Now, if we look at the personal jurisdiction, things personal are goods, money, and all other things movable, which may attend the owner's person, right? That person. Now we're dealing, right? Because now we're in the personal jurisdiction. Your acceptance of being the corporate person, right? Wherever he thinks proper to go. So this is, right? So it's because those things and goods, money are all movables, right? And attends the owner's person. So that's basically telling you that your corporate person has taken on those agreements, right? So it's you to be agreed to be the corporate person to take on the titles by purchase, creates the incorporeal jurisdiction.
William.
Yeah.
So what it's doing is it's mirroring the real. So as us as drunken monkeys come along later on in history and look at it and it looks real.
Exactly.
In other words, it's the scam.
That's right. This is the scam. Yeah. Right here.
That this is it. This is why it looks real, but it isn't real. Because they wrote it in that it now is real, even though it's a fiction.
That's right, because it's the incorporeal jurisdiction that's writing it for their own jurisdiction. So they're writing it for the people for who it applies in that jurisdiction. So when we understand that law and jurisdiction only applies to those that are within it, and you have to go to that jurisdiction, go to the jurisdiction that injures you, because they're the only ones that have the law to restrict that person, right? Okay, because I can't force a law into somebody else that's not theirs. So we have. So that's why that's why that jurisdiction has to create its own laws for those people, and those people have to join it. Right, by joining that group, gives them a, right. That's what gives that acceptance of these group laws, right? Because you accepted to join the group. So it's just as like joining Walmart, I should say, or Costco. Right? If you don't want to be a member of Costco because you don't like the policies, you give up your membership and you leave Costco. Right? Because members don't have it. Like, how many members would you have to change the rules of Costco? Right? You see what I'm getting at? And that's kind of the what's happening here is, with the understanding of what jurisdiction and these things are, people aren't seeing that every jurisdiction has to write its own laws. And because they got that authority from somebody else, they don't write where they got that authority from, because they already got it. They don't have to, right? Everybody that joined that group is supposed to already realize that, okay, yes, they got it from there, and I understand what's going on, right? And that this is the basic fundamentals to the law that people are missing. And as soon as they get the very basics to what law and jurisdiction is, all this is going to fall apart. And this is English law. This is the internal jurisdictions of the English law only. This is how the English law group decided to write their laws for those that these laws apply to. The warranty that we're talking about is not our law, it's their law that they have to abide by. Because they went and proclaimed that they're going to do these things for everybody. Okay? But getting back into this, now if we look at it at them all combined, incorporeal, corporeal, mixed, real, and personal, we see that it takes up everything, but it only takes up the things that were what was originally granted. Has anybody granted themselves in any of the corporeal jurisdictions? Do the people sign anything over? Do they accept anything whatsoever in the corporeal jurisdiction? No. Kind of see what I'm getting at? So everything falls within the incorporeal jurisdiction, and that's mixed, real, and personal. That's 3 more jurisdictions inside the other 3, right? Because we have hereditaments, which is 1, right? Then they break hereditaments into 2, corporal and incorporeal. right? The real is a part of the corporeal jurisdiction because it has to do with things annexed to the land, but not the land itself, because only corporeal deals with the land itself. Incorporeal deals with the real, personal, and mixed because it's those things that are annexed to the lands, right? It's not the lands themselves. That's the trust, right? Because the lands were given in trust, which made the corporeal hereditary. So all those that are going to be using those things on the land, right, are using things that they don't own and they can never own because it's in trust to somebody else, for somebody else, the true owner, right? And it's you that's the true owner, and the reason why you're dead in law is because you can't be in two jurisdictions at once. You can't be D and A at the same time. You made an agreement to be D, so you're not A. So once you terminate that agreement as D, the only thing left is A. You see what I'm getting at? So the combining of titles is actually the combining of your right. It's not combining titles of anything. It's combining your right of possession with ownership. Because corporeal is the ownership jurisdiction held in trust by the monarchy, and everything in the incorporeal is only a use for a fee. Corporeal is also a use for a fee only, but that's the jurisdiction that is assumed ownership for the true owner, because she can't give that jurisdiction can't give that ability to this next one. So that's why they added the ink. You see what I'm getting at? So this is what they're only doing a slight variation, and then they toss a whole bunch of these other things in there, right? Now the next page, page 9 for the monarchies, I didn't get the equity side finished yet, but it basically this is basically how I see how the English law happened. And when the land tenures started to happen, because King William usurped the throne in 1066, but he didn't do the Doomsday Book and take the actual lands to have the ability to create law for all those on those lands, right? Law of domicile, private international law. So that's when the feudal land tenure would have occurred. And that's also why it's so hard to find anything before the Magna Carta. And it's also why the Magna Carta is the common law constitution, right? Because the time frames that we're looking at. Now, the ancient land tenure would have started when Statute of Mortimer, when the people created the Christian faith and made it into a corporation, and created what we know of today as the Sedeki V Trust. So those people in the incorporeal jurisdiction and those lord barons could usurp the lands and all the monies from it by putting it into a Sedeki V Trust in a corporate trust. So that corporation never dies. So now the king can't tax the lands and everything else that was done only on the death. Right, to pay that was supposed to be to pay for the trust, but at this time it was because he stole it for himself, right? And as you can tell, by the time that we get to today, now it's recognized that the monarchy is just holding these things as the assumed owner, right? So the ancient land tenure started with the corporate person, and then they came up with the Sedeki V to usurp the land tenure that King William originally usurped, right? And then they came up with the Statute of Uses 1535, which is today's current modern land tenure of this gone to sea jurisdiction, and the Sedeki V is the monarchy took over that because everybody was already inside it. So the monarchy took it over by the Sedeki Act of 1535. He couldn't correct it, because the rules of nature and the rules of law is if people are wanting it, he has to continue it. Only those that want to leave, do they have a choice to leave. He can't terminate something that somebody's using and that he's trustee to. So that's why this Sedeki V is continued even till today in its current form. because it's gone to sea, and you being in that incorporeal jurisdiction, and by 1688, the Bill of Rights 1688 made it so anybody that's in this popish faith are barred from the estate and even from having anything to do with the governments or anything, because of what they were doing and what Christendom has done the entire history of English law. Right? So all the people that are claiming the faiths when they're doing this, they're automatically barred. Right there. You're a vexatious litigant. If you still have the corporate person, boom, you're barred. Right there. You're a vexatious person. It's these jurisdictions that people aren't understanding, and they're not understanding who created the corporate person in the Sede Quivi. And that's why King James tried to usurp the trust, right, through the King James Bible, right? So that's basically how the hereditaments work, and a little bit on the history of how these land tenures came about, and so on and so forth. So not until this current modern land tenure did we actually get the absolute rights of man. Bill of Rights 1688 released all the people from the monarchies. What is that when you release you from your allegiance, right, and set everybody free? And right after that, in the Bill of Rights 1688 says that the line of succession is open to those that are of the Protestant and not the popish faith, right? So we can really, when we actually start looking at the history and how all these things really started and what jurisdictions they created and why, and for who in that jurisdiction, this whole thing ends up really coming out and makes it very simple to understand why, as soon as you look at a law from a certain jurisdiction, you know whether it's of any force or effect for your capacity. Does anybody have any questions about this?
What did you mean about the difference between the Protestants and the Popish faith? Because you said neither of the religious people could claim anything.
Justin, you want to help me out here? From Alberta? I'm not up with all the faith stuff and everything else. Everything and all the faiths are actually you claiming to be something else. I believe Protestant is I don't know much about what Protestant even means, but
protest.
Yes, so the way that I look at that is that somebody that's not actually claiming to be a part of
the Catholic Church.
Yeah, right?
Because I think the Catholic Church is Popish faith. A Protestant is a protester.
When I spoke with Kev the other day, I kind of mentioned that my mum, she's Roman Catholic, and I think because you mentioned about jurisdiction, that means that she swears allegiance to the Pope. So then her agreement is kind of with the Pope sort of thing. Or if you, as a baby, you get, what is it, dope? What do they call it?
Baptized.
Yeah, where they take you to the church and baptize you. So I'm not sure if that takes you to a complete different jurisdiction, that they wouldn't be able to use the same as what we're going to do. This is just from what I understand from it anyway.
But that's the thing. Your parents took you in a baby and baptized you into a jurisdiction that you have to accept when you become of age. And at any time, you can change your mind. You kind of see what I'm getting at? All this stuff is agreement. So basically what they're saying is if you're going to want to be of the Popish faith and you want to be a corporate citizen and everything else, that you're not allowed to have the trust, because that's not what it is. This natural trust is for you to be self-determined and for those people to create a new society and a new jurisdiction for themselves, right? This is not where you're going to live half in society and half out. If you kind of see what I'm getting at, like this, the fee simple took over the planet and made everything a matrix. So if you want something real, you're going to have to leave and create that real thing for you in your jurisdiction. Otherwise, it's never going to exist.
Right. Because the thing is in Europe, they've got all the civil code and they've not really had common law. I mean, if I look it up, because Holland has a law book, whereas England obviously has the common law, so that makes it more distinguished. But this kind of relates to where I saw this video online where this guy said that he created the papal order or the papal bull, where he kind of said that the Pope claims everything. So
yeah, but I can stop you right there, because just by going over the different areas here, the corporeal and incorporeal, we realize that everything that's in everything that was created by a government or something like that, civil law, provincial law, federal law, is all incorporeal hereditament law. So it only applies to those in that group. It does not apply to the whole planet. No,
right? Exactly. No. And that's the thing, because yeah, I do. I understand. Yeah, but the thing is, because obviously with people listening to the video, there's a lot of religious people who've been baptized, so it's kind of good to say I ain't been baptized. I'm all right, but it's just that it just gives a better understanding of, because obviously the church is a corporation as well, so it kind of goes into all these different ideas.
It's the original corporation, right? So that's what created all of this, and that's why if people actually stop holding on to everything that they think is dear to them and actually read what history says and what the actual law says about these things, I think we could come to a mutual agreement between everybody that things are not what they're appearing to be, and it's your choices that can change that. So there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with being a Christian. There's nothing wrong with being a citizen. It's what you want, right? And that's the whole point to to a lot of this. But we're going to be getting into this more after. But true freedom is where you can do what you want. So if you want to be that corporate person, or if you want to be a part of a certain faith, you can do that. There's no one that can tell you that you can't. The issue comes in is when one of those people tries to tell me that I have to listen to their God's law or civil law or these other things that not only do I not agree with, but I'm not in contract with, and I understand that, and I truly understand the differences in them. Kind of see what I'm getting at? So when people truly understand those differences, because all that's happening right now is people believe that the Christian law applies to everybody on the planet, right? And then the Muslims think their law applies to everybody on the planet. Everybody thinks English law applies to everybody on the planet, no matter who you are. So the issue is actually coming from what people believe, because as soon as they walk up to somebody, they're forcing their law onto that other person without even realizing that they can't do that. So when we fix the true source of the problem, which is that, all this will stop. Because then people will realize that I can have my beliefs and do what I want to do. I'm not forcing them onto you, and you can have yours, right? But now it seems like because everybody's a part of this group, everybody wants to force everybody to have their same will and belief as them, so that's what they can have in their group. Yet, if they learned the law, they could actually fix this equitable system and have it so everybody has what they want. And that's why I'm leaving, because because the group is so messed up, the group's never going to fix. So since that group is never going to fix, and I don't have the option to do those things, because they're so ignorant and so angry and don't want to learn anything but what the corporation wants to push into their brains, I'm just going to choose to leave, and then they can just keep doing whatever they want to do, and it won't matter to me. See, because I understand that, right? Because I understand that, I know I don't have to go and revolt and do these picket sign things and everything else to make the injury that causes them to come and stick you in jail and take your rights away. Because
it's like they're saying, oh, you can't swim here, but you're perfectly able to swim. So it's like, well, no, I'll decide. I can go and swim if I like. I won't drown. Whereas there's others, they can't swim. So in a sense they're being protected, but it's kind of where you go all over the world. I mean, if you go to Dubai, they're really strict over there. You can't do anything, but over here it's free. So that's obviously the group that you want to get into. But you can also be a Muslim in England or a Christian somewhere else. So you're not restricted in that sense. So it's kind of really, as you said, you've got to know your place and the laws, what actually you have to abide by, sort of thing. So that does make a lot of sense.
Basically, you can have any belief you want as long as your belief doesn't affect someone else.
Yeah.
That's,
you can choose to be a
the
part of that or
and
leave
ends
it,
all
or,
of it. If you want to believe that you're a Jedi Knight and you're starting Star Wars, then I can't tell you that you're not. it's that simple, really.
Okay, cool. I'll mute it again.
Kate, anybody else have anything for that area?
Who said that the Popish faith can't be part of the trust? Who said that?
I did.
The Lord did.
You can't claim the trust if you're part of the Popish faith. You are the trust. You are the trustee of it, and that's what they're saying. You're the trustee, so you can't usurp as the trustee.
That makes sense.
So they're barring you, right? That's the original corporation that created this, right? So the monarchy didn't take it away.
Where that was said,
they just restricted it. Oh, Bill of Rights, 1688.
Okay, thanks.
Anybody else have anything on this? And then we're going to move into jurisdictions. Okay, I guess we'll start into the jurisdictions next.